I'm so glad you found your way here. Right now, somewhere nearby, a dog is sleeping curled beside the person it loves most. And that simple fact is the end of a story that began more than 15,000 years ago. In the cold darkness, before history had a name. Tonight, you'll discover how wolves became dogs, and how two species chose each other so completely that neither has ever been the same. Welcome to the Sleepy Safari, wherever you are right now, perhaps with a dog breathing softly at your feet, or simply feeling that quiet pull toward rest. Allow yourself to sink a little deeper into comfort. We'll discover 100 sleepy facts about dog domestication and the ancient partnership between humans and dogs, from the first wild wolf stepping toward a human fire, to the sleeping face of the dog beside you tonight, to the chemistry of love that science is only beginning to understand. These gentle journeys through the animal kingdom create a sanctuary for curious, restful minds. A soft like, subscribe, or sharing helps other animal lovers discover this peaceful space and brings us closer to protect these stories. One sleepy soul at a time. It means the world to us and to the creatures we celebrate. Settle deeper into your pillows now. Let your shoulders drop, your breathing slow and steady. You don't need to remember every fact about dogs and wolves. Just feel that peaceful heaviness spreading through you, like a dog circling once, twice, and then finally curling into sleep. Safe, warm, trusting, each breath drawing you a little deeper into rest. Close your eyes and breathe deeply. You're resting in a world where dogs and humans have slept side by side for thousands of years. Let your mind settle with that ancient, quiet companionship. And now we begin. Dogs are the oldest domesticated animal on Earth. Before cattle, before horses, before wheat fields and city walls, there were dogs. Genetic evidence suggests the divergence of dogs from ancient wolves occurred somewhere between 20,000 and 40,000 years ago. But the earliest confirmed genetic evidence of domesticated dogs dates to at least 15,000 years ago. With new genomic analysis from sites in Turkey and the United Kingdom pushing that confirmed date back to 15,800 years. What scientists do agree on is this: dogs came first. While our human ancestors were still following herds across open grasslands, living in small bands with no permanent homes, the partnership between person and dog had already begun. Every other domesticated species came after. The dog was the original choice. And, it seems, the most enduring one. Dogs descended from wolves. This is no longer a theory. It is one of the most thoroughly confirmed findings in modern genetics. Every domestic dog alive today, from a tiny Chihuahua to a massive St. Bernard, traces its ancestry back to ancient populations of grey wolves. The wild wolf and the domestic dog share between 99 and 100% of their mitochondrial DNA. Scientists at the National Human Genome Research Institute and universities across the world have confirmed, through careful analysis of ancient genomes, that wolves, likely now extinct populations that diverged from modern wolves, were the single ancestor of all domestic dogs. Not foxes, not jackals, not some intermediate species. Wolves, transformed, over thousands of years, into our closest animal companions. Where domestication happened is still being debated. Researchers have proposed East Asia, Southeast Asia, the Near East, Europe, and Central Asia as possible origin sites. And the truth may be more complex than any single location. A landmark study published in the journal Science in November 2025, analyzing 73 ancient dog genomes spanning nearly 10,000 years from East Asia to the West Eurasian steppe, found that different dog lineages correlate with distinct ancient human populations. The evidence increasingly suggests that dogs may have diverged from wolves independently in different parts of Eurasia, or that an early domestication event spread rapidly with human migrations. The mystery of where the first dog was born may never be fully resolved. And perhaps that is fitting. Some partnerships are too ancient, too deep, to have a single starting point. The process of domestication likely began with wolves choosing humans, not the other way around. The most widely studied hypothesis today suggests that certain wolves, those with slightly lower fear responses, slightly higher tolerance for human proximity, drifted closer to human campsites in search of food scraps over generations. The less fearful wolves fed more, survived more, and reproduced more. Their pups inherited that reduced wariness, slowly, across many generations. A population of wolves emerged that was comfortable near humans, that benefited from humans, and that humans began to recognize as useful. This is sometimes called the self-domestication hypothesis, the idea that dogs essentially chose us before we chose them. A 2025 computational study published in the Proceedings of the Royal Society modeled this process and found that this natural pathway could have occurred within a biologically plausible time frame. The commensal scavenger hypothesis is one of two leading theories for how domestication began. In this view, wolves lingered near human campsites, not because they were welcomed, but because humans left behind food, bones, scraps, waste. Wolves bold enough to approach benefited over generations. Those bolder wolves became a population adapted to human proximity. But a second hypothesis, sometimes called the active taming hypothesis, proposes something warmer. That early hunter-gatherer humans adopted wolf pups, raised them by hand, and deliberately kept the tamest ones. Observations of modern hunter-gatherer cultures around the world show that people frequently adopt wild animal young, including wolves, as companions. Both pathways may have contributed. The true beginning of the dog may have been neither purely accidental nor purely intentional, but something in between. Dogs underwent what scientists call the domestication syndrome, a cluster of changes that appear together in many domesticated species. Compared to wolves, domestic dogs have smaller teeth, shorter snouts, smaller brains, floppy ears in some breeds, and reduced stress hormone responses. They are less aggressive, less fearful of novelty, and more socially tolerant. These traits are not random. They appear to be linked at a genetic level, emerging together when selection pressure for reduced aggression and fear is applied. The same pattern appears in domesticated foxes, pigs, cattle, and horses. Nature seems to have a template for making a wild animal into a gentle companion. Dogs followed that template, guided partly by human preference and partly by the ancient logic of survival. near a powerful and generous species. A famous experiment begun in 1959 in Russia demonstrated domestication in real time. Soviet geneticist Dmitry Belyaev began selectively breeding silver foxes, choosing only the tamest individuals for reproduction with each generation. Within just 10 to 20 generations, the foxes began showing dog-like traits: floppy ears, curled tails, smaller skulls, shorter snouts, and a marked preference for human company. They approached humans eagerly, licked faces, and behaved like puppies even into adulthood. The experiment is still ongoing in Siberia today. It showed that the physical and behavioral changes associated with domestication are not independent. They travel together. As if tameness unlocks a whole suite of connected traits, dogs went through a similar transformation. Just over a much longer and more complex timeline, dogs that lived alongside early humans were not the fluffy companions we know today. The earliest domestic dogs were large, wolf-like animals, probably resembling a muscular mixed breed or a primitive village dog. They worked alongside hunters, helped track prey, warned of danger at night, and may have served as pack carriers for small groups on the move. Genetic analysis of ancient dog fossils suggests that early dogs had shorter wider heads than wolves, smaller teeth, and a slightly different body proportion. But they were not small or decorative. They were working animals in a working world, as essential to survival as fire, as important as stone tools. The lapdog and the toy breed came much later. The oldest confirmed dog burial was discovered in the Bonn-Oberkassel region of Germany, dated to approximately 14,000 years ago. Researchers found the remains of a young dog, barely 7 months old, buried alongside 2 humans. The puppy had been gravely ill for weeks before its death, suffering from canine distemper at a time when it could not have provided any practical use to the people caring for it. It had been nursed, fed by hand, kept alive by people who chose to keep it alive, even when it offered nothing practical in return. This simple burial tells us something profound. 14,000 years ago, humans and dogs had already moved beyond utility. They had reached the territory of love. The puppy at Bonn-Oberkassel was not a tool. It was a companion, mourned, buried with care, given a resting place beside the people who had known it. Dogs developed a remarkable ability to read human gestures that wolves do not share. When a human points at an object, a dog will look where the finger is pointing. This sounds simple, but it is not. Chimpanzees, our closest genetic relatives, animals with complex social intelligence, largely fail at this task. Wolves raised by humans also fail. But dogs, even very young puppies with almost no training, consistently follow human pointing gestures to find hidden food. This ability appears to be encoded in dogs at the genetic level, a trait selected for over thousands of years because it made dogs more useful and more connected to humans. Dogs essentially learned to read the human mind, or at least the human hand, and turned that skill into the foundation of a partnership unlike any other in nature. The dog's ability to understand human communication goes beyond pointing. Research from multiple university cognition labs has shown that dogs also follow the direction of human gaze, respond to human facial expressions, and distinguish between happy and angry human voices. Brain imaging studies have confirmed that dogs process human voices in a region of the brain similar to the voice processing areas in humans. Emotionally charged sounds, a laugh, a cry, an angry shout, activate not just the dog's hearing centers, but also the amygdala, the brain structure associated with emotional processing. Dogs are, in a very real sense, tuned to the emotional frequency of the human voice. Tens of thousands of years of living together have made dogs extraordinarily sensitive to the signals we broadcast. Often without realizing we are broadcasting at all. One gentle hypothesis suggests that humans living alongside dogs may have had subtle advantages in finding food and alerting to danger at night. Small advantages that, compounded over generations, may have quietly shaped the story of our survival. Dogs could detect approaching animals before any human sense could register them. They could track prey through terrain and darkness. They could raise an alarm from sleep. Whether these advantages influenced the broader outcome of human prehistory cannot be proven. It remains one of the quieter mysteries woven into the long partnership between our two species. A what-if that lives, unresolvable and peaceful. In the space between science and story, dogs and humans co-evolved, meaning that each species changed in response to the other. This goes beyond behavior. Dogs developed genetic adaptations for digesting starchy foods, a diet common among farming humans that wolves do not have. Specifically, dogs carry additional copies of the gene that produces amylase, an enzyme that helps break down starch. This genetic shift appears to have occurred as dogs became more deeply integrated into farming communities, eating the same foods as their human companions. Meanwhile, humans may have evolved greater capacity for empathy and social bonding, partly through long association with dogs. The two species have been shaping each other for so long that it is difficult to say where one story ends and the other begins. The starch digestion adaptation in dogs is one of the clearest genetic signatures of domestication. Wild wolves have 2 copies of the gene that encodes amylase. Domestic dogs average 7 copies. Some breeds have even more. This amplification allows dogs to derive nutrition from grains, tubers, and cooked foods that would be nearly indigestible for a wolf. It happened because dogs living near farming humans were eating human food. And individuals who could digest that food better survived and reproduced more over generations. The amplification spread through the dog population. It is a quiet revolution, written in the genome, evidence that dogs are not just tamed wolves, but creatures genuinely transformed by living beside us, adapted to our world as thoroughly as we have adapted to theirs. Modern dog breeds, as we know them, are surprisingly recent. The hundreds of recognized breeds, from Dachshunds to Great Danes, are largely an invention of Victorian England. Less than 200 years old, before the 19th century, dogs were categorized roughly by function: herding dogs, hunting dogs, guard dogs. Humans interbred dogs freely, seeking useful working traits without concern for fixed appearance. Then, in the 1800s, dog fanciers began breeding for visual ideals, selecting for appearance rather than ability, closing breeding lines to maintain purity. Within 50 to 80 generations, distinct physical types crystallized. The enormous variety of dog body shapes and coat types is the result of this relatively brief period of intense human-directed selection, a reminder of how quickly evolution can move when guided by a clear and powerful force. Wolves and dogs have significantly different social structures. Wolf packs are tight family units, led by a breeding pair, with complex dominance hierarchies maintained through subtle communication and occasionally conflict. Dogs, particularly free-ranging or village dogs. The roughly 75% of the world's dog population that lives alongside humans without formal ownership live in loose, opportunistic social groups that form and dissolve based on food availability and reproduction. They do not maintain the rigidly hierarchical pack structure of wolves. This shift in social organization was part of what made dogs compatible with humans. They became flexible, adaptable social animals who could fit into a human family structure rather than imposing their own. The dog did not bring the wolf pack into the home. It left that structure behind. Dogs recognize human faces, and they have a brain region that processes familiar versus unfamiliar human faces specifically. Neuroimaging studies in which dogs were trained to remain still in an MR1 scanner have shown that the dog brain responds differently to images of familiar people versus strangers. The response to a familiar human face activates reward-related brain regions in dogs, the same areas that light up when dogs receive food or affection. Dogs are not just detecting human presence. They are recognizing individuals, encoding social memory, and responding with something that the brain, at least structurally, processes the way it processes reward and comfort. Whether this constitutes what we would call affection in the full human sense is a matter for ongoing study, but the neural architecture for it is there. Shelter dogs that raise their inner eyebrows more are adopted significantly faster than those that do not. This finding, documented across multiple shelter studies, reveals how deeply human preferences have shaped dog evolution. When a dog raises the inner corner of its brow, the movement that gives dogs their characteristic pleading, soulful expression, humans respond with a nurturing instinct. We want to comfort them. We want to take them home. Those dogs, historically, received more care, more food, more protection. Their pups inherited the tendency, over generations, the ability to make this small, powerful facial expression became more common in the dog population. Not because dogs chose it consciously, but because it worked. The pleading look in a dog's eyes is a genuine evolutionary adaptation, shaped by our response to it. Dogs evolved a specific facial muscle that gray wolves largely lack. This muscle, called the levator anguli oculi medialis, sits above the inner corner of the dog's eye. When contracted, it raises the inner eyebrow, creating the puppy dog eyes expression. Research published in the Proceedings of the National Academy of Sciences confirmed that this muscle is fully developed in domestic dogs, but absent or vestigial in grey wolves. A 2024 study comparing dogs, wolves, and coyotes added nuance. Coyotes also have a well-developed version of this muscle, suggesting the trait may have been present in earlier canid ancestors and reduced in the wolf lineage specifically, rather than appearing entirely new in dogs. The science here continues to evolve, but the core observation holds. Dogs have faces shaped, in part, for communicating with humans. That expression of need, That softness around the eyes is real. It is written in muscle and bone. When dogs and humans gaze into each other's eyes, both experience a rise in oxytocin, the same hormone involved in the bond between a mother and her infant. Research, published in the journal Science, documented this interspecies oxytocin loop. Dogs that held longer mutual gazes with their owners showed elevated oxytocin levels afterward. So did the owners. The loop reinforces itself. More gazing leads to more oxytocin, which leads to more connection, which leads to more gazing. Researchers have described this as dogs finding their way into the human bonding pathway, co-opting a neurochemical system that evolved for parent-infant attachment and repurposing it for a cross-species bond. Wolves raised by humans do not show this same response. This particular chemistry seems to have emerged specifically during domestication. The look your dog gives you is, chemically, a kind of love. Dogs can distinguish human emotional expressions. Carefully controlled studies have presented dogs with pairs of human facial images, one expressing happiness, one expressing anger, and found that dogs can reliably identify these emotions, even when they are shown only the upper half or lower half of the face. Dogs who have spent more time with humans are better at this task, suggesting that emotional reading improves with experience. More quietly remarkable, dogs respond differently to these expressions, approaching a happy face more readily, giving space to an angry one. They are not simply detecting a difference, they are interpreting meaning. This capacity for emotional literacy across species boundaries is rare in the animal kingdom and speaks to the depth of the dog's social evolution alongside humans. Dogs sleep more when they feel safe, and they sleep more deeply near their human companions. Studies measuring heart rate and movement in sleeping dogs have found that dogs in familiar, secure environments enter deeper sleep states more readily than dogs in unfamiliar or stressful conditions. Dogs also appear to synchronize their rest periods with their owners over time, resting when their humans rest, becoming active when their humans become active. This behavioral synchrony has been observed in multiple research settings and is considered a sign of successful bonding. The dog sleeping at the foot of your bed is not merely habituating to your schedule, it is attuning to you, reading your rhythms, matching them, weaving its own rest into the fabric of your rest. It has been doing this, in one form or another, for thousands of years. The oldest confirmed dog remains in East Asia were found in northeastern China, dated to between 13,000 and 11,000 years ago. DNA analysis, published in 2024, confirmed the presence of domesticated dogs in the Harbin region of China around that time. These ancient dogs showed genetic relationships with both Siberian and East Asian wolf populations, suggesting that the story of dog domestication in East Asia was complex, involving movement, mixing, and possibly multiple domestication events. The northeastern region of China, linking the broad Eurasian steppe with the northern Chinese heartland, appears to have been an important corridor for both human and dog population movements. Every ancient dog genome recovered tells us a little more about this vast, slow, continent-spanning story. Dogs have been helping humans hunt for at least 10,000 years. Rock art from across the world, from the Arabian Peninsula to northern Africa to Scandinavia, depicts humans hunting alongside dogs. The dog on a leash, or running ahead, flushing prey. Zooarchaeological evidence from sites in the Near East shows dog remains in association with hunted prey from very early in the Neolithic period. Dogs with different body proportions suggest early specialization. Longer-legged dogs for speed and coursing. Shorter-legged dogs, perhaps, for tracking or den work. The working partnership between human hunter and dog was one of the most effective adaptations in human prehistory, and it may have given certain human groups a meaningful advantage in securing food during the long, uncertain millennia before agriculture. The relationship between dogs and humans has always been mutual. Dogs benefited from food, shelter, and protection from predators. Humans benefited from early warning systems, hunting assistance, companionship, and warmth. Yes, warmth. Ethnographic records note that indigenous peoples in cold climates slept with dogs to stay warm, giving rise to the expression three-dog night, for a night cold enough to require 3 dogs as sleeping companions. But the mutuality goes deeper than any ledger of practical benefits. Research consistently shows that humans and dogs who live together synchronize physiologically, heart rates, stress hormones, even sleep rhythms converge over time. The partnership was not just economically useful, it was biologically integrating 2 species, slowly becoming part of each other's nervous systems. Take a deep breath and feel this. You are an animal too, a warm-blooded creature, breathing, resting, just like the millions of other animals on this planet right now. Somewhere, a dog is circling its sleeping spot, following an ancient instinct to flatten the grass that no longer exists beneath its paws. Somewhere, a wolf is howling at the edge of a forest, calling to a pack that answers with their own voices. Somewhere, the first wild wolf that ever lay down beside a human campfire is alive. In a sense, in every dog curled beside every person sleeping tonight, feel yourself as part of this long, living story. One creature among the countless others who have rested, trusted, and found warmth in each other across the centuries. Your body knows these rhythms. The rhythm of breath, the rhythm of the heartbeat, steady and slow, the rhythm of trust that allows you, right now, to close your eyes. Now we continue through the gentle facts of this ancient bond. Dogs are genetically diverse in ways that still surprise researchers. A 2025 review of dog behavioral genetics, published in the Annual Review of Animal Biosciences, noted that while dogs share a common ancestor, the genomic landscape of modern dogs is shaped by at least 15,000 years of varied selection pressures, geographic isolation, trade, migration, and human preference. Some breeds carry genetic signatures linking them to specific ancient human cultures. Basenji dogs from Central Africa carry a distinct genetic heritage tracing back to African village dog populations, with minimal European influence. Greenlandic sled dogs share ancestry with ancient Arctic dogs, tracked back thousands of years. Each breed is, in part, a living record of a human people and a way of life now largely gone. Village dogs, free-ranging, minimally supervised dogs living near human settlements, make up the vast majority of the world's dog population. Estimates suggest between 700 million and 1 billion dogs live on Earth, and roughly 75% of these are village or community dogs. Not pets in the Western sense, these dogs are genetically diverse, physically variable, and behaviorally very different from most Western breeds. They are the closest living counterparts to the ancient dog, shaped by natural selection, living on the margins of human communities, eating scraps, raising pups communally, and forming loose social bonds with the humans nearby. They are neither fully wild nor fully domesticated. They occupy the same ecological niche their ancestors occupied at the beginning, the human threshold. Dogs have been used for so many working roles that listing them feels almost impossible. Herding, hunting, guarding, pulling sleds, retrieving waterfowl, tracking missing persons, detecting hidden dangers, detecting cancer, guiding the blind, assisting the deaf, supporting individuals with epilepsy, autism, PTSD, and diabetes. In each of these roles, dogs bring not just their noses or their strength, but their extraordinary attunement to human need. A diabetic alert dog that wakes its sleeping owner before blood sugar drops dangerously is not responding to training alone. It is using senses, and social sensitivity evolved over thousands of years, specifically for detecting and responding to human states. The working dog does not just follow commands. It reads a person. The dog's sense of smell is approximately 10,000 to 100,000 times more sensitive than a human's. Depending on the odor compound, this extraordinary olfactory power is not just a matter of having more smell receptors, though dogs do have up to 300 million olfactory receptors compared to about 6 million in humans. The part of the dog's brain devoted to analyzing smells is, proportionally, about 40 times larger than the comparable region in the human brain. Dogs live in a world of scent, the way we live in a world of sight. Riech, detailed, layered with information invisible to us. They can detect a single drop of a substance dissolved in an enormous volume of water. They can smell time, noting how the freshness of a scent trail indicates whether someone passed an hour ago or a minute ago. Dogs can detect disease in humans through scent, and the evidence for this has been growing steadily. Dogs have been trained to detect certain cancers, including lung, colorectal, breast, and ovarian cancers, with accuracy rates in some studies exceeding 90%. They can detect the chemical signature of a hypoglycemic episode in a diabetic patient before symptoms appear. Malaria infection has a distinct odor that trained dogs can identify reliably. The mechanism involves volatile organic compounds, trace chemicals released through breath, sweat, or urine that the dog's nose can pass with extraordinary precision. The dog's nose may be, in certain medical applications, more sensitive than many diagnostic instruments. This ancient sensory gift, evolved in wolves for tracking prey across great distances, now serves human medicine. Dogs dream. Studies using electroencephalography, brainwave monitoring, have confirmed that dogs experience REM sleep, the sleep stage associated with dreaming in humans. During REM sleep, dogs show the same rapid eye movements, irregular breathing, and occasional muscle twitches that signal dreaming in human subjects. When dogs twitch, paddle their paws, or make small sounds during sleep, they are likely processing the day's experiences, running after something in a dream, or greeting a familiar person who visits in sleep as they do in life. The content of a dog's dreams remains unknown to us, but the architecture of their dreaming is very similar to ours. They too go somewhere, in sleep, that we cannot follow. Puppies spend an extraordinarily large portion of their time asleep, up to 20 hours a day in the first weeks of life. This is not laziness. Sleep is the primary engine of brain development in young mammals. During sleep, the puppy's brain consolidates new neural connections, processes sensory input, and builds the foundational architecture of a mind. The same is true of human infants. Both species invest enormous quantities of early life in sleep because sleep is where growth happens. Not just physical growth, but the growth of the capacity to perceive, to learn, to bond. A sleeping puppy is not pausing development. It is pursuing development with the full commitment of a body that knows exactly what it needs. The social structure of wolves and dogs diverges most clearly in how each species relates to humans. When researchers raise wolf pups with identical human contact as domestic dog pups, the differences persist into adulthood. Hand-raised wolves are more independent, more dominant-seeking in human interactions, and less likely to look to a human for guidance when faced with a problem they cannot solve. Dogs, by contrast, consistently look back at their human companion when facing a challenge, seeking direction, checking in, treating the human as a social partner whose input matters. This gazing back behavior is considered one of the clearest markers of domestication and may be one of the most important behavioral changes that occurred during the dog's evolution from wolf. The dog does not just live beside us, it looks to us. Dogs have been found buried with humans across almost every ancient culture that kept them. In the Americas, Europe, Asia, and the Middle East, ancient burial sites contain dog skeletons interred alongside human remains, sometimes with obvious care, sometimes with grave goods. In some cases, the dog appears to have been killed to accompany its owner into death. In others, the dog simply died first and was placed in the grave to wait. These burial practices suggest that the human-dog relationship was not merely functional in ancient societies. Dogs were companions in death as in life, granted a form of spiritual status that no other domesticated animal received with such consistency. The cow, the horse, the goat, none were buried with their people the way dogs were. Modern dog breeds show a phenomenon called morphological plasticity, the ability to vary enormously in physical form while remaining a single species. The Chihuahua, weighing perhaps 4 pounds, and the English Mastiff, weighing up to 200 pounds, are the same species. Their skeletons, proportions, coat types, and sensory profiles differ more dramatically than the differences between many distinct wild species. This enormous physical range was created in fewer than 200 years of deliberate breeding. The genetic machinery for all this variation already existed in the ancestral dog genome. Humans simply activated different switches. It is one of the most rapid and dramatic examples of morphological change in any mammal species, accomplished not by millions of years of natural selection, but by decades of human preference. Throughout much of human history, dogs have walked alongside humans in even the most demanding circumstances, including conflict, Ancient civilizations recognized the dog's acute senses and loyalty in high-stakes situations. And dogs served in this capacity across many cultures and centuries. In the 20th century, dogs carried messages, helped locate the injured, and provided companionship in difficult conditions during both world wars. Today, working dogs in specialized roles continue to apply their extraordinary senses in service of human safety, detecting hidden substances, tracking individuals, and providing steadfast presence in environments where their calm attentiveness is irreplaceable. The dog trained for difficult work represents one of the oldest expressions of the human-canine partnership, a relationship of mutual reliance that has adapted to every era it has passed through. There is growing evidence that dogs provide measurable psychological and physiological benefits to their human companions. Studies have found that dog ownership is associated with lower blood pressure, reduced cortisol levels, faster recovery from cardiovascular events, and lower rates of depression and social isolation. The companionship of a dog appears to buffer the physiological effects of stress, modulating the body's threat response in ways that medication sometimes cannot. For elderly individuals living alone, a dog's presence has been associated with reduced cognitive decline. For children, interaction with therapy dogs has been shown to improve social engagement and reduce anxiety. The health effects of the human-dog bond are active areas of research, and the early results suggest that what our ancestors intuitively understood, science is now confirming. Dogs communicate with their tails in ways that are more complex than most people realize. The direction of a tail wag carries meaning. Research published in Current Biology found that dogs wag their tails more to the right when they see their owner, and more to the left in the presence of an unfamiliar or unsettling individual. Right-biased wagging corresponds to activity in the left hemisphere of the brain, associated with positive approach states. Left-biased wagging corresponds to right hemisphere activity, associated with withdrawal or caution. Other dogs can read these directional signals. They respond with increased heart rate to left-biased wagging in other dogs. The tail is not just an expression of general happiness. It is a directional broadcast of emotional state, readable by other dogs and, now that we know to look, by us as well. Dogs and humans share the experience of social play between a dog and its owner, chasing, wrestling gently, tug of war, a fetch, activates reward pathways in both species. Dopamine, serotonin, and oxytocin all rise during play, in both human and dog. Play is not frivolous. In both wolves and dogs, play is the primary mechanism through which social bonds are established and maintained. Young wolves play to learn, to establish relationships within the pack, to practice cooperation. Dogs play with humans for the same underlying reasons: to negotiate relationship, to establish connection, to build trust. When a dog brings you a ball, it is not asking for exercise. It is asking you to play, which is to say, it is asking you to bond. The genome of the domestic dog contains signatures of selection at specific genes associated with tameness, reduced fear response, and social behavior, the precise traits that distinguish dogs from wolves at the deepest level. Genes related to the regulation of cortisol, the stress hormone, show signatures of domestication-related selection. So do genes associated with neural crest cell development, the embryonic cells that give rise to adrenal glands, pigment cells, and many of the facial and ear features associated with the domestication syndrome. The molecular fingerprint of the transformation from wolf to dog is written across the genome in dozens of places, each one a small signature of the thousands of years during which humans, consciously or not, preferred the gentler animal, the more trusting animal, the one most willing to look back. You're still here, still listening to these ancient stories in the quiet, dark. Take a slow breath. Notice how your body feels a little softer now, a little more like the sleeping animals we've been visiting together. A dog somewhere is sighing in its sleep right now, paws twitching, dreaming of something only it can see. We're exploring this long, gentle story together, you and I, and everyone listening tonight. There's no rush, no test at the end. Just the quiet pleasure of learning about the most faithful companion our species has ever known. Before sleep finds you, let's continue. Dogs have demonstrated an ability to understand a vocabulary of human words that, in some individuals, rivals the vocabulary of a 2 to 3-year-old child. Border collies have been the most thoroughly studied in this context. Researchers studying canine cognition, including psychologist John Pilley at Wofford College in South Carolina, documented border collies who reliably identify well over 100 named objects by their specific labels. Chaser. The border collie Pilley, trained from puppyhood, demonstrated consistent understanding of over 1,000 object names, the largest tested vocabulary of any non-human animal. More remarkably, she could infer the name of an unknown object by exclusion. If she knew the names of all the other objects, the new one must carry the new name. This is a cognitive skill that typically emerges in children at about 2 to 3 years of age. Dogs show what researchers call referential communication. They use signals directed at specific individuals with the intention of conveying information. When a dog looks at its owner, then looks at an object it wants, then looks back at the owner, it is performing a communicative act. It has a goal, the object, and it is attempting to direct the human's attention to serve that goal. This gaze alternation between object and person is one of the clearest behavioral markers separating dogs from wolves in communicative ability. It requires understanding that the other individual has attention that can be directed. A rudimentary theory of mind. Dogs deploy this behavior flexibly, adapting to different objects, different people, and different contexts. They are communicating with us, and they know it. The bark is not a wolf behavior in the way we know it in dogs. Wolves vocalize in howls, growls, whines, and brief barks, but the sustained, frequent barking directed at humans is a behavioral trait that appears to have emerged during domestication. Researchers believe that dogs developed barking as a communication channel specifically for interacting with humans, essentially evolving a new vocal signal because humans respond to it, because it calls our attention, because it works. Different bark types convey different information. The high-pitched alert, the playful invitation, the quieter, anxious sound. Human listeners are moderately good at distinguishing these types, better than expected by chance. Dogs bark at us because we listen. And what told? We listen because, over thousands of years, listening to a dog's voice has often mattered. Dogs can sense human stress before it becomes visible. They detect changes in body odor associated with cortisol release, the physiological signature of human stress, and often respond with calming behaviors, leaning against the person, licking hands, placing their head in a lap. Research published in PLOS1 confirmed that dogs can accurately distinguish stressed from calm human breath and sweat samples, and that their own stress indicators rise in response to human stress signals. The dog is not just a companion. It is a continuous and gentle monitor, sampling the chemical information broadcast by your body and responding accordingly. The dog that puts its head in your lap when you are upset has not been told you are upset. It has sensed it. Ancient dogs in the Americas arrived with the first human migrants crossing the land bridge from Siberia into North America, at least 15,000 years ago, and possibly earlier. These dogs were genetically distinct from the dogs that later arrived with European colonists. Analysis of pre-Columbian dog remains from across North and South America shows a single founding population, distinct from Old World dogs, that spread with the first Americans across 2 continents. After European colonization, this original American dog population was almost entirely replaced by European breeds, leaving only trace genetic signatures in certain dogs today, including the Peruvian hairless and the Xoloitzcuintla, a 15,000-year-old canine lineage carried across a continent, quietly fading into the margins of the genome. Its echo is still there. For those who know how to listen, dogs have co-adapted to human sleep patterns in ways that wolves have not. Free-ranging dogs in urban environments tend to be active during daylight hours when humans are active, and rest at night. Wolves are crepuscular and nocturnal hunters, most active at dawn, dusk, and night. The shift in dogs toward a more daytime-oriented activity pattern appears to have occurred during domestication. As dogs adapted to the schedule of the humans they lived beside, this is not simply learned behavior. It reflects an underlying physiological shift in the dog's circadian rhythm, shaped over thousands of generations by the advantage of being awake when your human is awake, and resting when your human rests. Dogs and humans share a sleep schedule in a way that no other domesticated species does so consistently. The emotional sensitivity of dogs extends to their ability to comfort those in distress. Multiple studies have found that dogs preferentially approach and attempt to comfort individuals who are crying, even when the distressed person is a stranger. In one study, dogs that could choose between approaching their calm owner or a distressed stranger consistently moved toward the stranger more often when the stranger was crying. The dogs showed gentle, affiliative behaviors, the body language of comfort rather than curiosity. Whether dogs experience something analogous to empathy, a genuine understanding of another's emotional state, remains scientifically debated, but the behavior itself is well documented across many studies. Something in a person's distress calls to a dog. Something in the dog responds. Dogs have been partners in death as well as life throughout human history. In many cultures, dogs were believed to serve as guides in the afterlife, leading the souls of the dead through the underworld or across rivers between worlds. The ancient Egyptian god Anubis had the head of a dog, or perhaps a jackal, and presided over the passage of souls. In Mexican tradition, the hairless Xoloitzcuintla dog was believed to guide the dead through the 9 levels of the underworld. Greek mythology placed the 3-headed dog Cerberus at the gates of Hades. Across cultures separated by oceans and millennia, the dog appeared as the creature most trusted to accompany a human on the final journey. The one who would not abandon the dead any more than it had abandoned the living. Research published in November 2025 in the journal Science analyzed 73 ancient dog genomes to trace how dogs moved across continents alongside ancient human populations. The study found that dogs traveled with specific human groups, that the ancestry of dogs in certain regions correlates with the ancestry of the humans who lived there. When hunter-gatherers moved, their dogs moved with them. When farmers expanded, they brought new dog lineages. When pastoralists crossed the steppe, dogs came alongside. For nearly 15,000 years, dogs were not just following humans. They were traveling as part of a cultural package, as inseparable from human movement as tools, language, and fire. The dog was not cargo. It was family. There are more than 350 recognized dog breeds in the world today, and all of them, from the massive Tibetan Mastiff to the tiny Affenpinscher, can interbreed successfully because they are the same species. This is one of the most extraordinary demonstrations of phenotypic plasticity in any mammal. A range of body forms so vast, they would look like different families of animals in any other genus, all contained within a single species boundary. The shape of a dog's skull, the length of its legs, the texture of its coat, the curl of its tail, all of these features were present as genetic potential in the ancestral dog genome, waiting for human selection to draw them out. We did not create the dog's diversity. We revealed it. We're halfway through our journey now. Breathe slowly and imagine this. You're sitting beside a fire, somewhere ancient, not a campfire built for pleasure, but a fire built for survival, in the deep cold of a world before history had a name. Stars overhead, enormous and undimmed by any other light. At the edge of the firelight, a wolf watches. Its eyes catch the flame and hold it. It is not threatening. It is curious, cautious, drawn by warmth and the smell of food, and perhaps something else, something it cannot name, and neither can you. You are not afraid of it, and it is not afraid of you. Not yet a dog, not yet a companion, but the story has already begun. Feel the warmth of the fire on your face. Feel the ancient stillness of that night, the kind of quiet that only exists when the world is very large and very dark, and you are very small within it. Feel how natural it is to rest here, in this ancient scene, where the first conversation between two species is beginning in silence and firelight. We're halfway home. Everything from here moves gently downward, towards sleep. Let's continue. The stray dog population is, in part, a product of the most recent wave of dog domestication. Researchers have described this wave as driven by urbanization and the rise of indoor companion animals. Dogs bred primarily for docility, friendliness, and calm temperament rather than working function. As dogs became more pet-like and less working, breeding priorities shifted. The enormous global population of free-roaming dogs reflects the gap between the rate of breeding and the rate of responsible care, a consequence of humans continuing to shape dog biology while not always providing for the animals that result. Dogs share genetic risk for at least 360 diseases with humans, including certain cancers, epilepsy, heart disease, and neurological conditions. This is not coincidental. Dogs and humans have lived in the same environments for thousands of years, exposed to similar conditions, similar diets, similar stressors. Certain disease mechanisms evolved in parallel. Researchers are now using dog health data to understand human diseases. Canine cancer studies have led directly to insights about human cancer progression. The dog is, in medical science, not just a model organism, but a genuine parallel case. A species whose diseases mirror ours in ways that no other animal does so consistently. The bond between human and dog extends even into illness. Dogs have been used to detect COVID-19 through scent. During the pandemic, researchers in France, Germany, Finland, and Lebanon trained dogs to detect the volatile organic compound signature associated with SARS-CoV-2 infection in human sweat samples. In multiple independent studies, trained detection dogs achieved accuracy rates between 83 and 94%, comparable to, and in some cases, exceeding, rapid antigen test performance. The dog's nose, refined over millennia of selective breeding for scent work, proved capable of detecting a novel pathogen that humans had encountered for the first time. This adaptability, the ability to learn new odor targets rapidly, speaks to the deep plasticity of the canine nose and the dog's continuing usefulness in human health. The genome of the Siberian Husky, one of the oldest living dog breeds, retains more wolf-like features than most modern breeds. Huskies show less divergence from ancient wolf populations in certain genomic regions, suggesting their lineage underwent less intensive human-directed selection than most other breeds. They also lack the levator anguli oculi medialis muscle that gives most dogs their puppy dog eye expression. The husky's face is more wolf-like, expressive in different ways, but without the specific eyebrow musculature shaped through human preference. This is one small piece of evidence that the dog we know today, with its particular suite of emotional communication tools, is not simply a tamed wolf. It is a creature sculpted by thousands of years of human attention and affection. Dogs that are successfully bonded to their owners show a phenomenon called social referencing, looking to their owner when confronted with an ambiguous or unfamiliar situation before deciding how to respond. This is the same behavior observed in human infants looking to a parent for emotional cues about whether something is safe. In experimental settings, dogs shown a strange object or an unfamiliar person will look at their owner's face, read the owner's emotional expression, and then respond in line with what they see. If the owner looks calm, the dog approaches. If the owner looks uncertain, the dog hesitates. The dog is not just reading the world. It is reading the human, reading the world, and adjusting accordingly. Dogs can detect the scent of a person for days or weeks after that person has left a location. Search and rescue dogs can follow a trail left hours before they arrive. Cadaver dogs can detect human remains buried under several feet of soil or submerged in water. Tracking dogs working in careful settings have identified individuals through scent evidence in cases where no other evidence remain. The olfactory world of a dog is temporally rich, in a way our visual world is not. A smell does not just say who was here, but when, and for how long. A dog walking into a room reads its recent history, the way we might read a page of notes left behind. In a very real sense, domestic dogs did not exist before humans. The grey wolf is a creature of wilderness and deep ecological time. The domestic dog is a creature of human companionship, human settlement, human need, and human affection. It is one of the very few animals on Earth whose existence is entirely bound up with our own, that evolved specifically in the context of human civilization and would not exist in its current form without us. This is not a limitation. It is a form of co-creation. Dos a, in some ways, the most human of all animals, shaped by us. Etunet to us, more fluent in human communication than any other creature on Earth. They are our living creation and our oldest mirror. The science of dog cognition is relatively young. The first dedicated dog cognition laboratory was established in the early 2000s. Before that, dogs were widely used in behavioral research as subjects, but rarely studied as cognitively sophisticated individuals with their own perceptual worlds and social intelligences. The shift that began in the 1990s, treating the dog as a subject of genuine scientific inquiry rather than a behavioral model, has produced a cascade of discoveries about dog perception, emotion, memory, and social cognition. We are still early in understanding what it is like to be a dog. Every year, new findings add nuance and depth to that picture. The animal that has been beside us for 15,000 years is still, in many ways, a gentle mystery. Dogs show a remarkable capacity for emotional attunement during shared activity. When a dog plays with its owner, running, chasing, simply resting side by side, both experience shifts in neurochemistry that support bonding and well-being. Dopamine and oxytocin rise in both species. Heart rates can synchronize during close interaction. This shared physiological resonance between two different kinds of bodies, one human, one canine, is one of the quieter wonders documented by modern science. It suggests that the dog is not simply responding to us from the outside. In moments of genuine togetherness, something in both nervous systems begins to echo the other. Two species finding, briefly and reliably, a common frequency. Dogs age much faster than humans in early life, then slow considerably relative to humans in later years. A model of dog aging based on methylation patterns in dog and human genomes offers a more accurate comparison than the old 7-to-1 ratio. By this model, a 1-year-old dog is biologically equivalent to a human of about 30 years. A 4-year-old dog is comparable to a human of 54, but an 8-year-old dog is closer to a human of 64. The rate of biological aging slows significantly in dogs after early adulthood. They move quickly through youth and then settle into middle and old age at a pace more comparable to our own. The grey muzzle appears earlier than we expect, but what follows can be long and quiet. The diversity of dog body sizes is controlled by a surprisingly small number of genes, particularly a gene called IGF-1, which regulates insulin-like growth factor. Small dogs carry a specific variant of this gene that reduces the activity of the growth factor, limiting overall body size. This variant appears to have been present in ancient dogs from early in the domestication process, not an invention of modern breeding, but an ancient feature that humans then selectively amplified or reduced, depending on what they needed. The genetic machinery for size variation was written into the dog genome very early. Humans did not create small dogs from scratch. We found the switch and learned to turn it. Dogs can recognize their owner's voice across significant acoustic distortion, through a recording, through static, across a room. Studies using brain imaging have found that familiar voice recognition in dogs activates regions of the temporal cortex comparable to voice-sensitive areas in the human brain. A dog hearing its owner's voice on a speakerphone shows elevated neural activity and behavioral responses consistent with recognition, turning toward the speaker, increased attentiveness, sometimes a quiet vocalization. The brain has reserved specific neural real estate for the voices of those it loves. The dog listening for your footstep, your voice, the particular cadence of your return. It is not imagining you. It knows you, in neural architecture as well as in habit. Some researchers have proposed that the co-evolutionary partnership between dogs and humans may have influenced human social evolution, that living with dogs may have made humans more attuned to non-verbal communication, more practiced at reading subtle body language, more sensitive to the emotional states of others. This is a hypothesis, offered here as scientific speculation rather than established fact, but the logic is gentle and worth sitting with. A human who lived with a dog needed to read its posture, its ear position, the direction of its gaze, to communicate and to know when danger was near. That skill, practiced across a lifetime, may have quietly sharpened social perception in ways that extended far beyond the relationship itself. Dogs are more affected by their owner's emotional state than by most environmental stressors. Studies measuring hair, cortisol levels, a long-term stress indicator, in both dogs and their owners, have found that the cortisol levels of the two correlate significantly over time. A chronically stressed owner tends to have a chronically stressed dog. Regardless of the dog's living conditions, the dog does not simply absorb stress from the environment. It absorbs it from the person. This finding has been replicated across multiple studies and appears particularly pronounced in dogs with high attachment to their owners. The dog is emotionally entangled with its person in ways that run deeper than behavior, reaching into the biochemistry of its body. The first depiction of a dog on a leash appears in an ancient rock carving from Saudi Arabia, dated to between 8,000 and 9,000 years ago. The carving shows a hunting scene, a human figure leading multiple dogs on individual leashes while the dogs appear to be pursuing prey. This is not just evidence of dogs as hunting companions. It is evidence of a controlled, managed relationship, one in which the human was deliberately directing the dog's behavior. The leash is a symbol of partnership and mutual navigation. It says, "You and I are connected, and we move together through this world." That image is 9,000 years old. Dogs show grief-like responses when their bonded companion, human or canine, dies or disappears. Behavioral changes after loss include reduced appetite, decreased activity, increased vocalization, searching behavior, and disrupted sleep. These responses have been documented across many cultures and are now the subject of formal research. The degree of response appears to correlate with the closeness of the bond. Dogs, most strongly attached to the lost companion, show the longest and most marked behavioral changes. Whether dogs experience grief in a way that is phenomenologically similar to human grief remains unknown. But the searching for what is gone, the quietness that follows the absence of a beloved presence, is unmistakably real. Dogs have 14 distinct facial expressions. According to a 2022 study using the dog FACS coding system, a dog-specific facial action coding system adapted from human emotion research, many of these expressions are used selectively in the presence of humans, suggesting they function primarily as social communication with us rather than with other dogs. The eyebrow raise, lip lick, blink, and jaw drop are among those most frequently used in human-directed communication. Dogs that interact more with humans show a broader and more nuanced repertoire of facial expressions. The face is a channel of communication that dogs have refined over thousands of years of living with creatures who watch faces as their primary social input. Modern dog breeds show significant differences in cognitive style, not just physical appearance. Border Collies bred for herding tend toward high responsiveness to visual cues and rapid learning from observation. Beagles and other scent hounds attend more strongly to olfactory information and are more persistent in odor-following tasks. Northern breeds like Huskies show more independence and less human-directed social behavior than many other breeds. These cognitive differences are the product of selective breeding for functional roles. Humans selected the dogs who best matched the task, and in doing so selected for cognitive traits as well as physical ones. The dog's mind, like its body, was shaped by what humans needed it to do. Dogs appear to have a sense of fairness. Experiments have shown that dogs refuse to perform a task for a smaller reward when they can see another dog receiving a larger one for the same task. They will stop offering a paw for a piece of plain bread if another dog is receiving something more appealing for the same behavior. This refusal was not observed in dogs working alone, without a visible comparison. The social context was essential. Whether this constitutes a genuine sense of injustice or a simpler form of behavioral contrast is debated among researchers, but the behavior itself, comparing, noticing inequality, and responding by disengaging, is a form of social evaluation that has rarely been demonstrated outside of primates. Dogs have been to war, to space, and to the deepest caves of human history. Laika, a mixed-breed stray from the streets of Moscow, was the first animal to orbit Earth in November 1957. She was selected because street dogs were considered more adaptable to difficult conditions. Her true cause of death, overheating during the craft's fourth orbit, would not be publicly confirmed for more than 40 years. She orbited above the planet that was the only home dogs had ever known. Alone in a place no living thing had been. Looking down on the blue world where her species had walked beside ours for 15,000 years. Her story is a complicated one, full of both courage and sorrow. But she was a dog to the very end, trusting the mission, trusting the people who sent her, sailing through the dark. Dogs raised with cats from puppyhood show social behaviors toward cats that closely mirror their behaviors toward humans and other dogs, suggesting that dogs do not apply fixed behavioral templates to other species, but instead learn and adapt their social approach based on early experience. This flexibility in social attachment is one of the hallmarks of domestication. The wolf's social world is defined and relatively rigid. Pack, prey, and threat. The dog's social world is open and adaptive. A dog can learn to love a cat, a rabbit, a horse, or a human infant with nearly equal capacity. It is the most socially flexible mammal on Earth. The total number of dogs alive on Earth today is estimated at between 900 million and 1 billion. The majority live without formal human ownership, as free-ranging or community animals. Of those living as pets, the highest concentrations are in the United States, Brazil, and China. In the United States alone, approximately 65 to 90 million pet dogs live in homes. This is the largest the domestic dog population has ever been. 15,000 years after a wolf first walked toward a human fire, the descendant of that wolf is everywhere. In apartments, farms, hospitals, schools, and the most successful journey in canine history was not the sprint across the Ice Age steppe. It was the long, slow walk toward the warmth of human company. Dogs appear to understand something about the reliability of those around them. Research has shown that dogs respond differently to humans who have demonstrated willingness to help versus those who have refused. And they remember these social impressions across subsequent interactions. They also show preference for people who behave cooperatively with their owner versus those who behave unhelpfully. This sensitivity to social reliability, to whether a person can be trusted to cooperate, may have deep evolutionary roots. A dog's well-being, for thousands of years, depended on reading the trustworthiness of the humans around it. That quiet attentiveness to character has never left. Dogs are the most behaviorally diverse species on Earth in relation to their size range and functional specialization. No other single species has been adapted to such a wide range of tasks, environments, and roles while remaining genetically and reproductively compatible. This diversity is the record of 15,000 years of human imagination applied to a willing and adaptable partner. The sled dog and the truffle hound, the guide dog and the greyhound, the herding border collie and the lap-warming cavalier. All of them are dogs. All of them are wolves, distantly. And all of them are expressions of what became possible when two species decided to face the world together. The bond between a dog and its owner activates the same neural networks in a human brain that are activated by viewing images of a child. Brain imaging studies have shown that viewing a photograph of one's dog and viewing a photograph of one's own child activate an overlapping network of brain regions associated with emotion, reward, affiliation, and social cognition. The magnitude of activation was comparable in both conditions. This does not mean humans mistake their dogs for children. It means that the bonding system of the human brain, the ancient circuitry of attachment, does not restrict itself neatly by species. The love that evolved to ensure the survival of human infants has been extended over 15,000 years to include another creature entirely. The dog found its way into the deepest human attachment system, and it has lived there ever since. You might be feeling tired now. That's exactly right. Breathe slowly and think about cycles. Animals live in cycles, day and night, season and season, generation and generation. The wolf in the forest, the wolf that walked toward the fire, the dog that lay down beside the sleeping human, the dog sleeping beside you now. Nothing is permanent. Everything is in motion. But some things persist across the motion. Some partnerships survive the turning of thousands of years and still look, at their center, like warmth and trust, and a creature that chose to stay. You are part of this rhythm. Your body knows it. The rise and fall of your breath, the quieting of your thoughts, the pulling towards sleep that you do not need to resist. Like dogs settling in beside the ones they love. Like every dog that has ever trusted the dark, because it was not alone in it. You can settle too. We're almost there, almost home. Dogs can detect the approach of their owner from a significant distance before any sound is audible to human ears. Some studies have suggested that dogs begin anticipating their owner's return before any conventional cue. No sound, no car engine, no footstep yet in range. Whether this is attributable to an extremely sensitive perception of familiar sounds below human hearing threshold, or to something not yet fully explained, remains a matter of scientific interest. What is clear is that dogs attend to the world with a sensitivity we cannot easily perceive, and that this attention is focused, always, partly on the person they love. The world's oldest living dog breeds include the Basenji, the Saluki, the Afghan Hound, the Chow Chow, and the Shar-Pei, dogs whose genomes cluster closest to ancient dog and wolf ancestors. These breeds predate the Victorian breeding era by thousands of years. They carry, in their DNA, a longer memory of the dog's journey. Echoes of ancient partnerships in hunting, herding, and guarding that shaped their forms long before any breed registry existed. Dogs do not only process experience during waking hours. Researchers believe that dogs consolidate social information during sleep, that a dog's relationship with its owner is, in some sense, actively maintained during rest. Sleep strengthens emotional bonds formed during waking hours in mammals broadly. A dog that played with you today carries that experience forward through the night. It wakes with it. The relationship continues. Quietly, even when you are both asleep. More households in the United States include a dog than include a child under 18. This shift in what constitutes a family, in who lives beside us, in the most intimate domestic space, is relatively recent and appears to be continuing. Dogs are filling roles in human emotional life that were once held by larger family structures. They ask for nothing beyond presence. They offer consistency when human relationships are complicated. They are an ancient form of companionship adapted, somehow, to the particular needs of modern life. Dogs recognize their own name from early puppyhood. By about 6 weeks old, a puppy shows differential behavioral responses to the sound of its own name compared to other names. By 12 weeks, this recognition is well established. The name is one of the first human words a dog learns, one of the first threads connecting it to the person who named it. For a dog, to hear its name is, in some sense, to be called into belonging. It is the sound of a specific relationship, recognized and returned. The hair on a dog's hackles, along the neck and back, rises involuntarily in response to strong arousal or uncertainty. This is the same piloerection response seen in humans when we experience goosebumps, a remnant of a time when our ancestors had enough hair to make the gesture meaningful. Dogs and humans share this involuntary physical response to intense states. In dogs, It serves as a visible social signal. In humans, it is mostly vestigial, but it is there in both of us. A shared inheritance from common mammalian ancestors, a small reminder that the distance between wolf and human is, in evolutionary time, not as vast as it sometimes feels. Dogs show what researchers call attachment hierarchies. They form primary bonds with specific individuals and secondary bonds with others. The primary attachment figure functions much like a secure base in human attachment theory, a point of safety from which the dog can explore, to which it returns when uncertain. Dogs separated from their primary attachment figure show distress responses comparable to what human children show when separated from a primary caregiver. The bond is not simply preference. It is a physiological anchor. The ancient partnership between humans and dogs reached into death rituals across many cultures. In Norse tradition, dogs accompanied warriors in stories of the afterlife. In Aztec cosmology, dogs guided souls through the underworld. In some indigenous traditions, the dog's spirit was sent ahead to prepare the way. These stories appear across cultures, separated by great distances, and they suggest something about the ancient understanding that the bond between human and dog was not merely practical. The dog was trusted as a companion in the greatest unknown of all. Scientists have found that dogs kept with their bonded owner during a stressful situation show lower cortisol levels and calmer physiological responses than dogs handled by strangers. The presence of the familiar person acts as a genuine physiological buffer against stress. This is the same effect observed in human infants in the presence of their primary caregiver. The attachment bond is not a metaphor. It is a measurable biological reality. Presence provides safety in a way that competent care alone does not. The way dogs greet their returning owner, the burst of tail wagging, the circling, the soft vocalizations, activates reward pathways in both dog and human in ways measurable by brain imaging. The greeting is, biochemically, a small celebration. Dopamine surges. Oxytocin rises. The reunion is genuinely joyful in a way that neuroscience can now document, and the human response mirrors it. Two creatures, separately evolved, finding in each other's return a moment of genuine pleasure so consistent it has been written into the chemistry of both their brains. Dogs yawn in response to human yawning, a behavior called contagious yawning, associated in humans and great apes with empathy and social attunement. Multiple studies have found that dogs contagiously yawn more reliably in response to their owner's yawning than in response to a stranger's. Puppies are less likely to show this behavior, and it becomes more pronounced with age and bonding. The dog watching your tired face, yawning in quiet solidarity, is not simply mimicking. Something in it is resonating with something in you. Across the species boundary, in the small and gentle language of shared fatigue, dogs appear in the burial sites of every major ancient civilization studied by archaeologists. Egypt, Mesopotamia, China, Rome, the Americas, wherever humans kept records of their dead, dogs appear nearby, not always as companions, sometimes in different ritual roles, but often buried beside the person they had known in life. With care and intention, this pattern, consistent across cultures that had no contact with each other, suggests a human instinct to keep the dog close that did not end at death. There was something in the bond that resisted ordinary loss. A dog sleeping in your bedroom appears to have measurable benefits for the human. Studies have found that humans who sleep with dogs in the bedroom, though not necessarily in the bed itself, show comparable or slightly better sleep efficiency than those who sleep alone. The presence of a dog may reduce anxiety, provide a sense of security, and lower the arousal threshold that makes sleep difficult. The ancient habit of sleeping near a dog, practiced for thousands of years before anyone thought to measure its effects, turns out to be genuinely restful. Dogs can follow a young child's communicative gestures with the same reliability they follow an adult's. They do not require a fully developed communicative partner. They read the intent behind a gesture, even an imprecise one. This tolerance for communicative imprecision makes dogs exceptional companions for children who are still developing their own expressive precision. The dog does not need you to be articulate. It needs you to be present. Approximately 30 to 40% of dog owners speak to their dog every day as if the dog understands everything they say. Research suggests the dog understands considerably more than most people assume, and that the act of speaking to a dog, regardless of comprehension, activates social bonding circuits in both the speaker and the listener. The one-sided conversation is, in biological terms, not as one-sided as it looks. The dog is listening, processing, responding in ways subtle enough to miss, but present enough to matter. Ancient dog genomes show that some of the earliest dogs in Europe were largely replaced by dogs brought with migrating farmers from the Near East around 8,000 years ago. This genetic turnover parallels the replacement of certain human populations during the same agricultural expansion. Dogs did not just live beside humans. They traveled with specific human cultures, absorbed into new societies when those societies changed. The dog's genetic history is, in many respects, a quiet shadow of human history, tracing the same migrations, carrying the same memories of movement across a changing world. The dog's brain is proportionally smaller than the wolf's, reduced during domestication, as happens in many domesticated species, but the regions devoted to social cognition, facial processing, and response to human voices are, in proportion, more active than the equivalent regions in wolves. The domestication process appears to have traded some general cognitive capacity for enhanced social sensitivity. The dog is less cognitively general than its ancestor, and more specifically, attuned to the one domain that mattered most for its survival: understanding the humans it lived beside. Dogs sleep an average of 12 to 14 hours per day, compared to a wolf's 8 to 10. This difference may reflect the relative safety of domestic life. A dog sleeping in a home does not need to stay vigilant against predators. It does not need to monitor the dark. It can rest more completely, more deeply, for longer, because it trusts the environment it is in. The capacity for long, deep sleep is, in its way, a measure of safety. A sleeping dog is a dog that feels safe, and the dog that curls beside you tonight, sleeping long and fully, is expressing, in the language of the body, its absolute trust in where it is. Dogs have been photographed sleeping in almost every conceivable position, curled in tight circles, stretched flat, nose tucked toward tail, paws in the air. The curled position echoes the posture wolves adopt in cold to conserve warmth. The on-the-back position, paws loose and open, is the posture of complete comfort. A dog that trusts its environment entirely. The position a dog chooses to sleep in is a small measure of how safe it feels. And a dog sprawled and loose in the presence of someone it loves is a dog that has found, after 15,000 years of searching, exactly where it belongs. Research into what dogs feel, what they experience, what it is like from the inside to be a dog, is still in its earlier stages. We can measure their cortisol, we can image their brains, we can track their eye movements and record their voices. But the inner life of a dog, the texture of its experience, the quality of its joy, remains beyond our instruments. What we can say is this: the dog exists in a continuous present, attending above all to the people it loves, finding in their presence a form of completion that looks, from every angle we can measure, very much like contentment. Whether it is contentment in the way we mean the word, we cannot say, but it is something real and warm and here. And so, our quiet journey through the story of dog domestication comes to a gentle close. We've traveled from the cold edge of a prehistoric fire, where the first wolf watched the first human with cautious, curious eyes, all the way to the sleeping dog at the foot of your bed tonight. We've glimpsed the ancient genomes, the buried companions, the evolved muscle above the eye that learned to ask for love in a language we could not resist. We've wandered through the chemistry of gazing, the biology of trust, the 15,000 years that made the ordinary miracle of a dog sleeping beside a person seem like the most natural thing in the world. We've met a creature that was not born beside us, but chose us. Or was chosen. Perhaps both. Perhaps neither. Perhaps something that has no name, because it happened before language did. And along the way, we've discovered that the dog is not just an animal that lives with us. It is an animal we made, and that made us. In return, dogs remind us that partnership can cross every boundary we think separates us from the wild world. Much of the bond between human and dog exists in the space between words, in a look held a moment longer than necessary, in a body pressed warm against a leg, in the quiet of two different kinds of breathing filling the same dark room. They teach us trust without needing to name it. Without them, 15,000 years of human nights would have been lonelier, colder, and more uncertain. By pausing to learn their story, by honoring the long road from wolf to sleeping companion, we remember that we are not as separate from nature as we sometimes feel. We are part of it, woven into it, sharing our homes and our beds and our heartbeats with creatures that found us in the darkness a very long time ago, and decided to stay. In these final moments, take the deepest breath you can. Think about connection. The wolf, the fire, the first slow step across the frozen ground toward the warmth of something unknown. Every dog alive tonight, and there are nearly 1 billion of them, sleeping in houses and streets and fields across the whole dark turning world, carries that moment in its cells, the moment of choosing, the moment of trust. Let your entire being dissolve into that long, warm history, into the knowledge that you are part of a story older than civilization, more patient than any individual life. Two species, finding each other in the dark and holding on. Let your body grow heavy and still. Let your thoughts drift like snow across an ancient landscape, covering everything gently, peacefully. You are held here. You have always been held here, in the long companionship of creatures that chose to sleep beside you. Prepare for deep sleep. No boundaries left between you and rest. Only peace. Only breath. Only the soft darkness welcoming you home. If this gentle journey through the ancient story of dogs helped you relax or feel connected to something larger tonight, consider sharing it with someone else who loves animals. A soft like, subscribe, or quiet share helps other curious souls discover this peaceful space. It might be exactly what their restless mind needs to finally let go and drift. One quiet tap, one peaceful night, one sleepy soul at a time. But there's no need to do anything now. Nothing at all. You've traveled far tonight through 15,000 years of story. You can allow these thoughts of wolves and fires and sleeping dogs to fade now, like the last warmth of an ancient campfire, leaving only the quiet it made behind. Let your breathing deepen. Let your body feel heavier, like a dog that has finally found its resting place and knows, with every muscle loosening toward the floor, that it is safe. If sleep comes, let it carry you like a long, slow migration, smoothly, inevitably, into the realm where the waking mind goes quiet and something older and gentler takes its place. If your eyes are still open, another gentle journey is waiting for you, ready to begin whenever you want to return. But if they're closed, stay there. Stay in that soft darkness where dogs also rest, where they dream of running, of returning, of the person whose voice they know best of all. Tomorrow, dogs will still be sleeping beside the ones they love. The ancient partnership will still be holding, as it has held through every night for 15,000 years. But tonight belongs to rest. Sleep well, gentle soul, and remember, somewhere nearby, a dog is breathing in the dark, keeping watch, perfectly at ease. You are not alone. You have never been alone. Relax, listen, and drift with the animal kingdom. Good night.